Bauer. Ursula snorts. Well, what a remarkably silly request. She swooshes to the darkest corner of her cave, illuminated by a group of anglerfish, and ensconces herself on a throne of rock and reef. She sits down, her look is stern, the ends of her black tentacles are clenched. Oh, how she would just love to set her eels on a little minx that just entered her cave with the most ridiculous plea. Only she wouldn't want to call too much attention to herself. There were a few things better not seen by her brother, King Triton, or the authorities. Especially now, this cave being in such a good position, so close to the castle and the underwater village. Business was floating. She couldn't risk it. Ursula, please, this would change my life. Ariel, apparently knowing no fear, followed her into the heart of the cave. I need human legs. Certainly not. Ursula's tentacles snap like whips, and Flotsam and Jetsam, one to her right, one to her left, sparkle with electricity for additional dramatic effects. Not that it seems to impress the Little Mermaid. You haven't even spoken to this man. Why in Poseidon's name would you want to give away your fin to be with him, to be excluded from that magical, colourful world of the ocean, and have to fight your way on the dry part of the world? For a strange human. What was it with these young women? Ursula thinks. For years, their ancestors had fought for equal rights, had demonstrated, refused to only be responsible for watching eggs or looking after the offspring, while the men were out and about discovering the deep ocean. But as soon as the freedom wasn't extraordinary anymore, the young women had no shame but to treat their ancestors' achievements with contempt. Eric is not weird, Ariel retorts, hands on the beginning of her fin. I meant strange in the sense of unknown, but thank you for making the point. For all we know, he could be bloody weird too. He must be, Ursula thinks, him having to breathe air instead of water all the time. He couldn't be. Ariel's arms fly up in the water in agitation and nearly hit her yellow and blue pet fish, Flounder. Flounder, what a stupid name for a tropical fish. But then, what was Ursula to expect of a friend of Ariel's? He's the one. I felt a connection. You just felt a surplus of oxygen is what you felt, my dear. How long have you been outside the water to stare at that young man? Ariel looks down. Is that guilt? I knew it, Ursula cries. You know nothing. I didn't stare at him. I saved him. I sang to him to wake him up. You're just a sad old witch who has never known love and therefore begrudges everybody who experiences it. Whoa. Ursula raises her eyebrows. How dare that little thing talk to her like that? If it weren't for the stupid male supremacy rule, she would be the bloody queen right now, her being 2 years older than Triton. 2 years and 4 days to be precise, not that it changes anything. But if it would, oh then such behaviour, such ignorance wouldn't be tolerated. Probably Triton would secretly support Ariel's stupid love quest if he knew about it, her putting a man on a pedestal. The anger in Ursula's chest bubbles louder. Do not destroy your business. Do not destroy your business. Well, if it is your innermost wish, I don't want to stand in your way. She glides to a potions table, rummages through the tiny bottles with tinctures until she finds what she was looking for. But be careful what you wish for, young lady. Ariel squeals and performs a looping, leaving Flounder swirling around disoriented. That was way too much happy emotion for one day, Ursula thinks, alarmed. Listen, Ariel, she says sternly, I have a special potion that will grant your wish, obtaining human legs. However, nothing in life comes for free. So in turn for your dearest wish, you have to give something of equal value. She sees Ariel gulp and Flounder whisper to her, Are you sure you want to do this? Well, that was more like it, Ursula thinks, and finishes, Your voice. Ariel puts her hand in front of her mouth. And if you do not find true love by the third day, you will be lost forever. Ursula sees Ariel exhale. Did you think it was easy now? What a preposterous child, just like her father. Ursula needs all her control, not to throw any charm Ariel's way right that minute. But then Ursula might be in possession of her voice sooner than later. As the saying goes, she who loves last, loves longest. As Ariel starts drinking the potion and her voice begins to manifest as a pearl, that Ursula will put in a Nautilus shell and hang around her neck, Ursula sees the horrified look in Flounder's eyes. Well, at least one of them shows the appropriate reaction. Ariel tries to breathe in and nearly chokes. How could the water have become so dry? Oh my God, she thinks, has somebody poisoned the ocean? She feels panic rising. More of the dry substance entering her lungs. Bizarrely, she doesn't feel faint at all. She remembers. She opens her eyes and cannot hide her glee. It worked. She wants to turn around and tell Flounder, but of course her best friend is still in the ocean. This will be the first time away from him since Ariel met the tropical fish when she was being approached by a group of drunk mermen, and it was thanks to Flounder that they swam off. It must have been more than 10 years ago. Well, she will have loads to tell him once she sees him again. She dives her fingers into the sandy beach, feels the unfiltered warm sun on her skin, looks down at the lower part of her body, and instead of the boring green and blue fin, she sees lovely, slim, delicate human legs. In a moment of extreme joy, she wants to shoot up and do a looping, as she would have been able to do underwater. But she merely falls back on her back and feels a bit silly. No need to feel silly, she tells herself. Everything will be marvelous from now on. But everything would be far from marvelous. In fact, things couldn't be much worse 2.5 days later. When Ursula had said Ariel would have to give away something of equal value in order to gain human legs, the mermaid had feared she would lose her lovely face or her wavery red hair. So, when she heard it was only to be her voice, she'd actually felt a bit relieved. Well, she would be able to do without her voice, she thought. The prince would only need to see her, look her into her deep ocean blue eyes. There would be a magical spark between them, as in all the fairy tales. And just as with Snow White, one of her favourite water bedtime stories, he would save her with a kiss. But as it turns out, the person she fell in love with doesn't recognise her without her voice. When a servant finds her at the beach a few moments after she landed and helps her into the castle, the prince doesn't even properly look up from the papery, thin pages he is reading. Ariel wants to cry in despair, but no sounds come out of her mouth. The queen, the prince's mother, sees her despair, mistakes it for her feeling lost and alone. Well, how was she to know? And asks whether Ariel would like to stay for a few days. She has the loveliest room to offer, which she immediately shows to her, and she even brings Ariel a few dresses from her daughter, who is currently on travels abroad. All the places I will be able to see, Ariel thinks, as she lets herself fall on the 4-poster bed with beautifully engraved wooden columns, feeling her good mood returning. Maybe you would like to freshen up, the queen says when she returns with soft towels. Ariel would like to say thank you, but she can only nod and smile gracefully. Dinner will be served soon, Ariel thinks, so I best make myself nice looking. Of course the prince couldn't have recognized her looking this disheveled. She steps into the shower and doesn't really want to admit to herself how good it feels to be underwater again. You wanted to explore the land all your life, she says to herself, so enjoy it now, Poseidon, damn it. Being freshly showered and dressed into a stunning pink robe that surprisingly fits just perfectly, just like in a fairy tale, she thinks, Ariel is confident that things would change during dinner. Surely Eric couldn't miss her in her pink dress, and when he finally looks at her properly, surely he couldn't not see the girl who saved him during that naval accident, and simultaneously, and more importantly, his true love. But he doesn't. He's nice and polite when he hands her the food, which doesn't taste as good as she thought, way too dry, but doesn't seem to be smitten by her. Although she tries to hold her head down in what the Little Mermaid magazines told her was a demure posture. How can he not see her? Things get worse a day later when Ursula, disguised as a young, beautiful woman and equipped with Ariel's voice, appears and tricks him into believing she's the woman who saved him once and is also the love of her life. So when Ariel wakes up on the 3rd day, she is in utter despair. The prince is to marry Ursula this afternoon. Laying on her back, looking up at the beautiful carving of the 4-poster bed that she couldn't care less about now, she starts to cry. She cries and cries. She doesn't even bother to take a shower, knowing this would calm her down. But she doesn't want to be calmed down. When she hears a beak knocking against her window, she doesn't understand it at first. She thinks it might be very loud raindrops, the sky weeping in tune with her sorrow. But it is Scuttle, the albatross, that often accompanies her on her adventures to the surface. Everything happens very quickly then. Scuttle tells her that they managed to disguise Ursula. They broke the necklace with the Nautilus shell, thus breaking the charm Ursula had woven to make the prince fall in love with the witch. An army of albatrosses and seagulls had chased Ursula back into the ocean. The nightmare was over. Ariel wants to squeal with joy, but still no words come out of her mouth. Of course, she thinks, I still need true love's first kiss. She hurries down the stairs, out of the castle, down to the beach. She sees the group of men only when she's nearly in front of them. "Oh, silent girl," one of them shouts, way too loud. They must be drunk. "Why are you running so fast? Want to chase your voice?" They bellow with laughter. She can smell rum now. "Oh, come on, don't be so shy. I can give you a bit of my voice. You just need to come and get it." The men have surrounded her by now. The one who just made the disgusting suggestion is sticking his tongue out. She pushes him away. "Oi, don't play hard to get. We all saw the effort you made in the last days." Again, that disgusting laughter. The men were coming even closer. Ariel looks around, but even if she screams, which she still can't, they are secluded by sand dunes. There's nobody within looking distance. One of the men seizes her at her arm, trying to pull her closer. She feels exactly like in that moment 10 years ago, when she was surrounded by the drunk merman and Flounder had shown up just in time to help her. With a few surprising movements, making use of the body weight of his attackers, he had managed to put them to flight. Everybody always assumes Flounder is scared because he's helpless, but he can look after himself quite all right. He just doesn't want anything to happen to people he loves, Ariel realizes. She's quite surprised at herself when the drunk men approach her, and she remembers some of the moves Flounder then used and is able to copy them. "Leave her alone!" Just as the men start to back down because of her fighting, the prince arrives on the scene. The men run off. Ariel is so surprised of her achievement of defending herself. She only tunes in to the 5th or 6th sentence, he says. He's apologizing, blaming a haze that prevented him from seeing who she was. But as soon as the charm had broke, he knew who he needed to look for. He looks at Ariel longingly. Ariel waits for the wave of relief to wash over her, to feel ready to let go in his arms, surrender. But no such feelings set in. And while the prince is still talking, obviously without realizing that she isn't even listening, she knows exactly what she wants to do. She frees herself of his embrace, and having the prince's puzzled look following her, runs towards the ocean. She dives in, forgetting her legs that don't carry her as fast and efficient as a fin would have done in the water. But she doesn't have to swim far. Of course he had been waiting nearby, patiently, ready to help her if needed, but in no way daring to interrupt her adventure, her quest, for he knew she needed to find it out herself. "Flounder," she cries as she sees the blue and yellow fish shoot towards her. She stops for a second in astonishment of her own voice, not only in her head, but clearly echoing through the ocean, realizing it had never been only about someone else's love.